Hello learners, we are now in week 3, section 3. We have discussed in the first section of week 3, we have discussed who is a morally educated person. We have also discussed the difference between morality and ethics. And moving on to week 3, section 2, we have discussed dimensions of morality, different facets of morality, where we have discussed caring as well as judging. Let me repeat, this particular week we are doing what is called dimensions of morality. In this particular week, we will be covering the different dimensions of morality, where we have finished discussing who is a morally educated person. We have also discussed the difference between morality and ethics. And in the week 3, section 2, we have discussed what is caring, what is judging. In today's lecture, which is week 3, section 3, we are in the last lecture of week 3. In week 3, we have been doing dimensions of morality, and in this particular week, in this last lecture of week 3, section 3, we will be discussing morality and justice and acting. Let me start right away. What does Durkheim says? Durkheim says, we are moral beings insofar as we are social beings. Morality as a concept is meaningful only in the context of society. Morality comes into being when we are in a society. We become a moral person, or different dimensions, aspects of moralities become meaningful in our life as members of the society, in the context of society, because if there is no society, then the very concept of morality does not become meaningful. Morality becomes meaningful in the context of society, which means that when we are members of the society, when we are in a society, we live in the society, so aspects of morality, aspects of values, ethics and so on becomes meaningful in relationship to others, in how we behave with respect to others and so on. Piaget talks of two kinds of morality. What are these morality? One is conventional morality and the other one is rational morality. When our conduct is dependent on the approval of others, it is guided by heteronomy of the will, or it is called conventional morality. We refrain from an undesirable conduct because of fear of disapproval of others or the fear of being found out. Let me illustrate this particular concept of morality, which is conventional morality, by giving you an example. Children especially, when it comes to their parents or when it comes to the teachers, they would refrain from an undesirable conduct because they would fear that it will be disapproved by their parents or by the teachers, and also they would refrain from doing certain conduct because they feel that if it is found out by the parents or the teachers, then they would be punished, or they would be punished and so on. So this is called conventional morality. What does conventional morality? It means when our conduct is dependent on the approval of others. We look at others for approvals. So we depend on others for approvals, which is called conventional morality. What is called rational morality, on the other hand? When the individual reaches a stage of the autonomy of the will. Autonomy of the will means he or she makes his or her decision and their behavior is directed by their own rational moral choices. So this is rational morality. Piaget says rational morality, in fact, he wanted to explore this particular aspect of morality by the nature of children's moral judgments. So Piaget worked in 3 areas, that is the children's attitude to rules, their judgment of right and wrong, and also their assessment of justice and fairness. Piaget found that moral development of the individual is a progression from heteronomy of the will to autonomy of the will, that is from conventional morality or rational morality. When we talk about the development of children, when we talk about the development of moral judgment among children, what happens is, in the beginning when they are at a stage when they are looked after the parents, when they are at a stage when they go to school, that is the first few years of their life at home, and also later on when they go to school, what happens is, this is a stage when children are very much concerned about the approval of others. Approval of others out here means, what is the approval of the teachers, the approval of the parents. So this stage is a stage where there is conventional morality and there is so much concern for the approval of others. Then what happens is, when children later stage in life, when they progress from infancy to adolescent to youth and so on, when they pass on to through these later stages of life, then what happens is, there is a progression from heteronomy of the will to autonomy of the will, which means that children, when they progress later in life, when they pass through the stages of life, that is infancy or adolescent, being an adolescent or being a youth and adult, what happens is, the heteronomy of the will, that is the approval of the others, becomes autonomy of the will, that is he or she starts slowly taking decisions, making choices of his own. This is called moving from conventional morality to rational morality. Like I said, in conventional morality, children tend to follow obedience to adults' commands and uncritical adherence to rules. But when children are able to formulate or accept the rules after critical reflection, they may be said to have reached rational morality. So this is how the development of children from being having what is called rational morality, conventional morality to rational morality takes place. Conventional morality, just remember learners, is following obedience to adults' commands and uncritical adherence to rules. That is, your parents make certain rules, your teacher makes certain rules, there are certain code of conducts which are to be followed in schools. You follow them without any disobedience. You follow these rules without complaining. This is what is called conventional morality. But later on, when the child is able to formulate and accept the rule after critical reflection, the child is supposed, and when he or she is able to make decision on his own, when he or she is able to reflect on about the rules, then the child is said to have reached what is called rational morality. From the point of view of justice, moral problems are regarded as conflicts between claims, especially between rights and duties of individual. Judging in terms of rules, standards or principle is compatible with the justice approach to morality. When we talk about from the point of view of justice, moral problems are regarded as conflicts between claims, especially between rights and duties of individual. Judging in terms of rules, standards or principles is compatible with the justice approach to morality. Perhaps the most important thing that can be said about action is that it is not moral or immoral in and by itself. Outside a person's motives or judgment, his or her actions have no moral worth. For example, Slotin separating the plutonium pieces apart was not moral or immoral as such. We have talked about morality, we have discussed conventional, rational morality. Let us move on to justice. When we talk about justice, it means moral problems from the point of justice are regarded as conflict between claims, especially between rights and duties of individual. Let me elaborate. You have certain rights. For example, you as a citizen of the country have certain rights which you have. For example, the right to vote irrespective of caste, creed, color or sex. You have the right to vote after attaining the age to vote. But at the same time, your duty as an individual is you should not be a obstacle to another person to perform his or her duty as an individual. Another example, let's say I'm walking on a pavement. I have the right to walk on the pavement, but my duty as an individual is not to be an obstacle to a person who is walking in front of me. I should not be an obstacle to a person who is walking in the pavement, in the sense that I should not stop him in the path of walking by taking up all the space and so on. So when we talk about justice, it means it is a conflict between what is called the rights and duties of individual. And when we talk about rules, when we talk about principles, standards, it is compatible with the justice approach to morality. When you are a just person, when you provide justice, when you are able to give justice to a person, then that is an aspect of morality, because you are being just, you are able to perform justice to others. And in terms of with regard to morality, this is also an approach to morality. This is another aspects of morality which is called justice. Then what about acting? When we talk about acting, action, what is important is that it is not moral or immoral in and by itself. Outside a person's motives or judgment, his or her action has no moral worth. For example, there would be certain motive, there would be certain judgment in terms of my action. I may take certain action, or I may have certain motive to take certain action. So there would be a motive for me to take that certain action. So outside of me, that is, my acting or my action depends on my motive. To understand this concept of judging or action, let me go back to the event. Then we go back to the life, the true life event of Stalin's, when he separated the plutonium pieces apart with his bare hands to save the life of his co-workers. What he did was, out here, the most moral action of what he did was the quality of caring and judging. That is, he cared for his co-workers, and he judged the situation. He judged the situation that this particular chain reaction in the room would harm to the extent of could kill his co-workers. So he judged this particular situation properly, and he, with his bare hands, separated the pieces of plutonium. And the motive or the intention associated was with the act of separating. Out here, the motive of Stalin was a good intention. The intention was good. The action taken out here was he separated the plutonium pieces. So this is a good intent, this is a good motive, and the action taken was what? Separating the pieces of plutonium. Killing, for example, when done in self-defense, or if the invader is not morally wrong, then this is when the action of killing, killing is an action, but the killing of another person may be in self-defense, or when it is your enemy who is trying to invade your country, when it is the enemy who is trying to invade by killing the brave soldiers who are posted in the border. So killing back when done in self-defense is not morally wrong, but when you kill a person with an evil motive, which becomes murder and makes the person criminally culpable. So the action of killing a person without any act of self-defense, or because the other person is an enemy trying to cross the border, then when the motive is evil, when the motive is a motive of trying to take revenge in a lot of cases, or trying to kill a person without any good motive or intention other than self-defense or protecting your country, then this particular action, this particular motive becomes what is called, it becomes murder, and the person who has done the killing, the action, becomes criminally culpable for crime. Action as such is morally neutral. It is good or bad depending on the motives or intention that are associated with the act. Even though action is not a moral category per se, yet without opportunities for action and reflection and action, it is difficult for moral development to take place. So when we talk about action, action as such is morally neutral. What you do, if you have a good intention, if you have a good motive, then it is a morally good action. But if you have bad intention, or if you have bad motives of doing that particular action, then it becomes it becomes morally bad. Action is morally neutral. It is not a moral category per se, yet without opportunities for action and reflection on action, it is difficult for moral development to take place. Yet there are some behavior which we as teachers, like I as a teacher, do promote, and others which we condemn. So there are certain behavior I as a teacher promote, and also there are certain actions or behavior which I condemn. For example, when children hit another, abuse each other, deliberately miss classes, refuse to share their materials, etc., we do not appreciate. But when a student volunteers some work like caring for the elderly people, help the disabled, we appreciate such behaviors. Psychologists have suggested that certain kinds of behaviors in children, such as waiting for their turn, helping people in need, sharing goods, need to be reinforced even before the children can fully find out rational justifications for such behaviors. So when we talk about acting, when we talk about action, we have talked about action is not a moral category, yet without opportunities for action and reflection on action, it is difficult for moral development to take place. Let me move back to when we were talking about the behavior of children, the behavior of the actions of certain children. I as a teacher would promote certain behavior. I as a teacher would promote would appreciate certain behavior of children, and would also condemn behavior of certain children. For example, when children hit another, abuse each other, deliberately miss classes, refuses to share materials, and so on, we do not appreciate. However, as a teacher, what is required of me is I should try to understand the background of why a particular child is behaving in such a manner. For example, if I see that a particular child A is not giving his or her materials, sharing his or her materials like pencil or eraser to a student B, I have to examine the fact to why this particular particular child is carrying such action, the action may be the result of the child B must have been very unfair, must have abused or must have hurt the child A feeling, which is why child A is reciprocating by taking such action of not sharing his or her material. So it is very important to delve into the background of why a particular child is behaving in a certain way, or why his actions are in a certain way. So here judgment comes. Here the aspect of judgment comes. We should not judge person on just face value. We should not judge a person just because a person is behaving or dress or speaks in a certain way. We have to go beyond judging a person because just by face value. It will be very good, it will be a good step to look into why a particular person is behaving or acting in a certain way. And also action of helping others, volunteering to help others, student volunteers to work for caring for the elderly people or to help the disabled is a good good moral action in itself. However, we should not pass judgment on the basis of seeing a person just or judging a person just by face value, what he looks like or what he says. A person may be rude to you because he may have some personal problems. It is always good to look and understand the person's feelings. So caring for the other person will go a long way, trying to see the background to why a person is behaving in such a manner, and not passing being judgmental right away will be good for our relations with others. Learners, in this particular section, I would like to give you an exercise. Please find out the ethical practices which doctors and lawyers have to abide by. What I mean to say is, because in this particular section we have talked about morality, we have talked about ethics. I would want all of you to find out what are the ethical practices which doctors and lawyers have to abide by. For example, let's say for a doctor or a lawyer, maintaining the confidentiality of the patient or the client is very important. So this is one of the ethical practices which a doctor and a lawyer has to follow. When we talk about confidentiality of a patient, it means not confidentiality of a client or confidentiality of a patient. It means not sharing the disease or not sharing the particular case of a client or a patient with others. So this is one of the ethical practice which doctors and lawyers have to abide by. So learners, I would want you to take this exercise, perform this exercise to find out the ethical practices of doctors and lawyers. So with this particular section, we have completed week 3, where we discuss who is a morally educated person, the differences between morality and ethics. We also have discussed the different facets of morality. We talked about caring, we talked about judging, then we also talked about morality and justice. We also talked about what is called acting or action. So with this lecture, I have completed your week 3, which is dimensions of morality. Thank you so much. I hope you have understood, and I hope you have benefited from this particular lectures on dimensions of morality. Thank you so much.